And now for our feature presentation.
He'll be fine on the mountain.
JB and Darren on the JB and Goldwater Show.
Line drive right field, base hit. South Carolina wins the College World Series.
Watson, touchdown! Hunter Renfrow.
He got him, and it's all over. Coastal Carolina rules the roost. They win the championship. And South Carolina has won the national championship.
Senegal baseball team has done it again, but this time the Bulldogs beat one of the top teams in the country. They are giant killers.
Get the ball to Bennett. He does.
Gamecocks are in the Final Four.
All right, greetings and a good Thursday afternoon, and welcome aboard the JB and Goldwater Show, live, loud, and online, and driven by our friends and yours at Stokes Volkswagen. You can find them at stokesvw.com. Find us on the JB and Goldwater app. Download that into your phone. It is free. You can watch and listen to our program daily in its entirety. You can also head to jbandgoldwatershow.com to be able to watch and listen to our program, and for much more information on us as well. Speaking of us, if you're watching the screen to the right of it, that is Darren Goldwater. To the left, that's me, JB. We're here until 2 p.m. this afternoon, and across all social media platforms at JB and Goldwater, individually at Sports Media JB, and at Darren Goldwater. 843-321-8893 is our phone number. It's also our text line, and it is open, but it will be filled starting at 12:30 today as Cory McCartney joins us from Atlanta, Georgia. We'll get an update on spring training with him. We got some other nuggets to get to in baseball as well. It is underway in the Grapefruit League and in the Cactus League or whatever.
Both of them.
Yeah. If y'all didn't know the names of Major League Baseball spring training leagues, there you go. So we'll get some stuff from him. We'll check in on the Braves. How about Luke Gehrig Day? That's a thing. It's now a thing, and we're going to tell you all about that and much, much more with Cory. We do have David Cloninger at 105 today checking in from the Post and Courier. We're going to talk to him about a lot of what Ray Tanner had to say yesterday on 107.5 The Game in Columbia about Frank Martin and the basketball program, about attendance near and far, or sooner than later, or however you want to phrase that, at sporting events on campus at South Carolina. The new Welcome Home campaign, obviously South Carolina's baseball program, they're set to take on Mercer in a 3-game series this weekend. We've got some hoop stuff to get to with him as well. So a pretty busy conversation coming up with DC. Got Scott Glaze later on today as well. We're going to check in with him on some golf stuff. We'll talk a little Tiger with Scott. We've got some Tony Elliott conversation to get into. He has now spoken about his future. And I was, Darren, I don't want to say that I was surprised, but I guess maybe my eyes opened a little bit further when I saw an assistant coach who's been pursued like that being so forthcoming about where he stands at Clemson, what he's looking for, and what his future may look like. Generally, right, when you ask some of these top assistants, they don't give you as much information, but he was very transparent. I thought that was interesting.
You're right. I mean, that's typically not something that you hear really at all. Just the transparency. You know that his name has surfaced. You know it's going to continue to surface, but you haven't yet gotten inside of Tony Elliott's head. And he let you very far inside of his head and what he's thinking and his family and his future and what he's looking for. It sounds as though it's not a lifer at Clemson type of thing. That doesn't sound like that at all anymore.
No, I don't know that that many of us ever thought it necessarily was. I know there's probably a bunch of Tiger fans that would hope that might be the case, but we all knew in due time he was going to land a big job, and he opened up about that. So we're going to get to that in a little bit. Phil Steele has a way too early top 25 out for college football as well, but we're going to reference it because there's an important statistic that accompanies that ranking from Phil Steele. So that's all coming your way here in just a little bit. Got some hoops from last night. We got some hoops to update you on for this weekend. and so on and so forth. Again, 843-321-8893. We're going to talk about Coach Tanner in just a moment as well. Pete Thamel has a report out about Frank Martin's future at South Carolina. And in discussing that future in his column, he references the future of Coach Tanner as the athletics director of the Gamecocks. So we'll get into all that here in just a little bit. Quick note, if you were planning to go this weekend and watch the College of Charleston play baseball, I hope you got your tickets because the Cougars have sold out their 3-game series against the SEC's Alabama Crimson Tide over at Patriots Point. So that's really neat news. The College of Charleston will be in front of a capacity crowd, which is only 50% at this point in time at Patriots Point, but it will be as full as it can be. And the Cougars certainly are trying to make a statement this weekend, I guess we would call that, right?
Yeah. I mean, look, the Cougars haven't gotten off to a great start. Alabama's record is good, but they haven't really been tested that much yet. So I will be in attendance at least tomorrow. I don't yet know if I'll be doing play-by-play or the analyst for Alabama radio. That'll depend on Alabama's women tonight in the tournament. But either way, I'll be there, and I'm looking forward to it.
So who's will you be filling for? Is it Roger?
Yeah, Roger Hoover.
Okay, so
he's doing the women's game in Greenville.
Okay.
And then if he can't make it here on Friday, I'll do the play-by-play.
Okay.
And if he can, since I'm getting ready anyway, I'll just sit in that chair, watch some baseball, and talk when he wants me to talk.
Okay. All right. Well, there you go. All right. So there you go. Darren Goldwater coming to an
Alabama radio near you.
An Alabama near you. That's right. Speaking of baseball, last night, how about the Citadel? They head down to Jacksonville and get a big win, a come-from-behind win, as a matter of fact, for the Dogs. And the last play of the game was a rocket into center field in which Jeffrey Brown dove for and ended it.
Mm-hmm.
And the Dogs improved to 3-4. Jacksonville is 0-8 on the season. It's been a really difficult start for them. But the Citadel was down big, and they 6-1, as a matter of fact. And they came all the way back by scoring the final 6 runs of the game to erase that 5-run deficit and get that third win of the year. So congratulations to Tony Skull and the Dogs. They're going to host a 3-game series this weekend at home. That's North Carolina A&T, who will be down at Riley Park. 5 o'clock first pitch tomorrow, 5 o'clock Saturday, 1 o'clock on Sunday. I saw a couple of neat photos tweeted out last night too from Tony. The Citadel, like North Florida, Jacksonville area, like alumni club, had a huge group.
Oh, nice.
Of folks who went to watch the Dogs play. So that was pretty cool.
Nice. Good for them.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, like the Citadel it's unique in that way. I mean, that's one of the takeaways of my time as the radio guy with the Citadel. Doesn't matter where you went, there's always a Citadel club.
Right.
It's not the biggest school in the world. It's one of the more small, right, D1 schools. There are Citadel clubs everywhere, and they're as passionate about the Bulldogs as Alabama fans are about Alabama.
Yeah.
So it's a fun group to be around.
Yeah, close-knit group, certainly. So congratulations to Tony and the Dogs last night. Clemson falls in hoops, a defensive battle at Syracuse, 64-54. Syracuse is playing well. They're maybe a tournament-type team.
Maybe.
Certainly Joe Lenardi and others have them on the radar. Clemson drops to 9-6 in conference. Syracuse now 9-7. Tigers 15-6 overall. And that last loss last night broke their 5-game winning streak. They will welcome Pittsburgh, the Panthers, to town at noon on Saturday up in Clemson. And we'll see if they can win that one. That would be their 16th win of the year, their 10th win in the league. By all means, Clemson is still at this point in time considered in the tournament, but certainly last night that 6 or 7 seed that they've been considered for could have taken and probably did take a little bit of a hit. So we'll have to see kind of how it unfolds for them in this final game and certainly into the ACC tournament. But they played defense last night, but so did Syracuse, and Syracuse's was much better.
There was about 5 or 6 minutes to go in the first half, and it was like 13-10.
Yeah, it was
a really, really tough game to watch, and you could tell in the tone from West Durham, it wasn't exactly the easiest game to call either. It's just, nothing's going in. It's a slow pace. Both teams are grinding it out defensively. Neither team is putting it in the hole.
No.
It was brutal. It was brutal. It was better for Syracuse than it was bad for Clemson. Clemson's still in the tournament, but it helps Syracuse's resume. They're right on the bubble right now.
Right.
So it's better for Syracuse than it was bad for Clemson.
And actually maybe deepened the ACC's presence in the postseason potentially. Both teams did hit 10 threes. Problem is
they didn't hit anything else.
Problem is, they couldn't hit, but they hit a combined 20 threes in this game, but Clemson only made 20 total field goals and Syracuse only made 21. The other problem with those threes is they fired off a total of 61 of them. 20 of 61 isn't exactly lighting it on fire from beyond the arc for either squad. Anyways, Tigers lose last night, but still comfortably in the tournament as long as they can keep things on track. 843-321-8893, our phone number. Also, our text line. Remember, the Sun Belt and the SoCon, their men's tournaments will start tomorrow. The CAA will begin on Saturday. The college playing late Saturday night. The SEC women, they started yesterday. I think Florida actually won that first game against 13-seeded Auburn, so they advanced. They're on the floor today. Gamecocks, they won't play till 6 o'clock tomorrow. Mm-hmm. The ACC women, they play today. Clemson and Notre Dame, 8 o'clock tonight. So a little bit of an update on in-state basketball tournaments. Of course, the Big South tournament is still going on, and Winthrop is looking good in that one. All right, let's get to this column from Pete Thamel. So Pete Thamel, whom I know Darren won't necessarily join me in saying this, but many folks, including myself, over the last few months have referenced as Pandemic Pete. Mm-hmm. He was awfully nervous about playing football last year.
As were a lot of people.
Yeah, as were a lot of people, but he was never mind. He was a little more over the top for my liking. I can assure you that. But he's got a column out about the future of some coaches in college hoops. And number 4 on his list is titled "What's Next for Frank Martin at South Carolina," which he's not the only one speculating on the future of Frank Martin at South Carolina, obviously. And he throws out the stats that we all know. Carolina at this point in time is not going to make the tournament this year, and it will be every year since the Final Four run that they haven't made the tournament. Obviously, 6-13. He does point out Frank diagnosed twice with COVID-19 in this stretch. All the time that South Carolina missed when the basketball team itself was off because of COVID protocols within the program. He also mentioned New Mexico. He mentioned DePaul in here as well as a team that looking for a new coach. He also mentions that Frank Martin receives more than $3 million a year, and he would be owed about $6.5 million if he's let go at South Carolina. And New Mexico, by the way, they just fired their coach not too long ago, and he was making $750,000 a year. So those numbers aren't close.
No,
those numbers aren't close.
$2.2 million is a big gap.
Yeah,
it's a big gap.
Yeah, a little bit of it.
When it's more than double what you're already paying the guy you just let go.
That's right. If you read this, you read something that we're all aware of. But at the end of it is what I think has caught some maybe by surprise or off guard, or I would say this has stirred, I would say, more conversation. The uncertain future of South Carolina AD Ray Tanner further muddies Martin's future, as Tanner isn't expected to be around close to the nearly 3 years he has remaining on his deal. South Carolina just hired Shane Beamer in football and linked him with an AD who isn't expected for the long haul. Can they do the same in basketball? So, and I didn't even see this till you pointed it out this morning, and then I sent out a couple of feelers. And look, I don't. There has been so much chatter. We've talked about this numerous times. So has everybody, especially since Carolina football opened with that deflating loss against Tennessee in the fall. Things continued to trend negatively for the football program. And ultimately, they fired Will Muschamp and had to pay him a rather large negotiated buyout at the end of the day. But when that happened, we all began to hear the noise. Fire Will Muschamp, fire Ray Tanner. Of course, after that happened, it was, oh my God, I can't believe we had to pay this buyout. Fire Ray Tanner because of the buyout situation. Of course, that is totally leaving out all of the facts when it comes to negotiating with football coaches in this league, which South Carolina, although that was a large buyout, that was nowhere near what some of these other guys have gotten into. It's just the market they were in, and they didn't have any choice. Your hands were tied behind your back with that. But the point is, there is a national sports columnist who I would hope not, Darren, would not speculate and write that Ray Tanner is near the end of his tenure as the athletics director at South Carolina unless he had a credible source whisper in his ear that this is coming. I've checked around for a while. I've known Coach Tanner a long time. I haven't talked to him in a while, and a lot of my close friends who have either played for him or know him very well, they don't have the answers to this either.
Right.
But, it's fair to think that at some point in time, Coach Tanner, believe it or not, has almost been the AD for a decade.
Yeah, it's been a while.
It's hard to believe that, but he's been there a while. So I think it's fair to say that there might be a time where he says, I've been doing this a long time. I've been a state employee for a long time. He's going to receive his benefits and things like that moving forward. And it might be appropriate to say, yeah, there might be a day sooner than later where Coach Tanner says, I'm gonna move to the beach.
Yeah,
I'm gonna move to the mountains, whatever it is. And he would have earned that, in my opinion, no doubt about it. But I don't know. Did that catch you off guard?
Oh, it opened my eyes immediately, right? I mean, the article was interesting to read because the article appeared to be mostly, all right, what coaching changes might we see? Let's kind of look at the landscape here, right? And then you get down and it's Frank Martin. Okay, obviously Frank Martin's going to be on this list because there's plenty of questions. Does he want to stay? Does he want to go? Do the Gamecocks want him to stay? Do they want him to go? And then just sliding in that Ray Tanner thing at the end kind of caught me aback a little and just kind of opened my eyes. I didn't see it coming in the article. But like you said, I have absolutely no doubt that someone, probably multiple people, have told Thamel that they believe this is true. Whether or not they're right, that's the question. Thamel wouldn't just go out there. None of these guys would just spew something like that off. He references in the article, basically multiple people, and no one really, I don't know the exact wording. You might have it pulled up, but nobody expects him to be around for the nearly 3 years. So he wasn't just saying, I've got a guy. He's saying his sense is really most people don't believe he's going to be around for 3 years. Paraphrasing, that's what he said. So that part did catch me off guard. That's not something we've heard outside of the rumblings of, do we want to keep him or do we want to fire him? Like just from fans.
Right.
So that's why it caught me off guard.
Well, there are two different conversations to have, obviously. And I think that I personally don't believe and have no information. If there is information contrary to what I'm saying here, I don't know about it. I don't think that Ray Tanner is in any way, shape, or form of losing his position as the athletics director at South Carolina or having a contract that wouldn't be renewed if he wanted to stay on longer or anything like that. As far as I know, the powers that be at South Carolina are incredibly happy with Ray Tanner as the athletics director. I know that some fans want to blame him for everything. When they stub their toe on the sidewalk outside of Williams-Brice Stadium, it's his fault because that wasn't shaved down and fixed.
Right.
Look, I get it. When people get frustrated, they're going to look to the leaders, and the first thing that's going to come out of your mouths these days, especially when you have a keyboard to work with, is, "We'll fire him."
Yeah,
you just fire him, and we'll figure out the rest later. It's kind of like the Frank Martin thing.
Yeah, I was going to say, same as a coach, right? It's a coach's team. It's an athletic director's department.
Right. Yeah. Has anybody considered the $6.5 million buyout? Y'all bitched about the $15 million buyout in a pandemic with all the money they've lost about football, but now we screw it. Throw 6.5 at Frank.
Already got 13 there. But 6 more.
Yeah. Well, no big deal. No big deal. So with Coach Tanner, I don't know what his future holds. The way that I feel differently, I feel the same as a lot of people because most people that I'm associated with are very supportive of Coach Tanner.
Yes.
But there is obviously a percentage of the fan base, as we find everywhere at every school, that doesn't like the job that he's done. And, as part of the program today, I wanted to kind of just do some research and see if others had picked up on this and what they might be saying out there on various social media platforms and things like that. And I continue to see the same things come up that are just flat out wrong. And one of them is it all started when he hired Chad Holbrook. If you can't see how wrong you are when you say that, then shut up and don't say another damn word about it. This is also false. He waited a year too long to fire him. If you can't see how wrong you are, then shut your mouth because you don't know what you're talking about. If you sell insurance and you don't like what I'm telling you about Coach Tanner, and you're okay with me walking into your office and telling you exactly what you should and shouldn't do as an insurance salesman, if you're okay with that, then by all means, say whatever you want publicly about Coach Tanner and the falsehoods that you're spewing. But if you would be uncomfortable with somebody who knows nothing about your industry walking in and telling you how to do it, then shut up because you don't know what you're talking about. And I know that I'm trying to teach my kids, don't ever say that phrase, but I'm saying it right now multiple times for damn good reason, because let's go back just to that period. If Ray Tanner didn't hire Chad Holbrook, Darren, one of the other blue bloods in college baseball was going to that year.
Well, we've had this discussion a couple times. Chad Holbrook was like the Steve Spurrier at this point, right? Like everybody wanted him.
Everybody wanted him.
So Ray Tanner went out and got him. If he didn't get him, like you just said, he'd have been anywhere else in a high profile.
Absolutely.
Everybody wanted him.
Everybody wanted Chad Holbrook. To say that he was fired 1 year too late, let me ask you all a question. Do any of you remember what happened to the year prior to him being fired? They went to a super regional. A super regional. I'm proud to say this. So y'all can say that I'm too close to the situation, whatever you want to say. I don't care. I know Coach Holbrook and I have a relationship with him. So I'm a little bit more defensive, and I get that. But I'm proud to say it, and I'll stand on this box and continue to defend my stance on that. It is really hard to be the dude after the dude.
Yeah.
Does anybody want to follow Saban? Anybody? Raise your hand if you can't wait to be the coach after Nick Saban at Alabama, because there ain't a soul on earth that can wait to do that. The only reason you would want to do that now is because of the market, because you know damn well if it doesn't work out, you're still going to get paid. All right. That's the only reason, because you're not going to walk in right behind Nick Saban. It's not going to happen and just roll out national championship teams every year. Chad Holbrook walked behind Ray Tanner, who had just won 2 out of 3 national championships and competed in all 3 of them. All right, and set a record that's more likely never going to be broken, which is the 22-game winning streak in the postseason.
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
It's just not going to happen again, okay? So he was the dude behind the dude. I know. I get it. They missed a couple of postseasons. That doesn't happen with Carolina baseball. Period, the end. I also understand when Mark Kingston came in that he had some things he needed to do to get it cleaned up and headed in the direction that it should be headed. I understand all of that. But that does not mean that he shouldn't have hired Chad Holbrook, and it doesn't mean that he should have fired him any sooner than he did at all. Sometimes things just, period, the end, don't work out.
The main gripe it felt like going through football season was the Holbrook part was on the back end and Muschamp was the forefront.
Absolutely.
Speaking of Tanner. So that seemed, why did he get the extension when he got it? Why not do it sooner? However you want to frame the Muschamp thing. And then piled on with what else can I find? Let's throw Chad Holbrook onto this to strengthen my argument. Yep. That's kind of how it felt, like just reaching for straws to strengthen the argument that those were presenting, however they tried to present it, just grabbing something else to throw on the back.
Right. Yeah. I mean, and then, you hear all these, well, he shouldn't have hired Muschamp. Okay. Well, who should he have hired? Because they were all set to hire Kirby Smart, and then Georgia opened up their position to get him. So who else should he have hired? I mean, hold on, I'm listening. Anybody? Go ahead, send me a message. I want to know. Who should he? Tom Herman? Tom Herman wasn't coming to South Carolina. No. Should he have hired Rich Rodriguez? Hey, by the way, Alabama tried to hire Rich Rodriguez. Should they have hired Rich Rodriguez? All right. No, this is sometimes things don't work out. Sometimes they don't.
It's as simple as that.
All right. Now, where did he make a mistake? You can argue that he was wet behind the ears and the contract extension he made with Will Muschamp.
Yes.
And I'll raise my hand and agree with anybody that wants to go down that road.
Mm-hmm.
Look, I don't know this I can't put any words in Coach Tanner's mouth. I have no idea. Okay. I have no idea. But I would venture a guess here. They would probably like to redo the way that they did that.
Yes.
Okay. That's fair.
Yeah.
That is more than fair. But if that's fair, and there are other points that are fair, then just leave the argument to the fair points. Don't bring in the unnecessary garbage to this. Okay? Jeremy Foley, long regarded as one of the best athletics directors in the history of college sports, hired Jim McElwain.
Mm-hmm.
He also hired Will Muschamp. He also hired Ron Zook, okay, to coach their football program. All right? It didn't work out. Okay? So sometimes things don't work out. They don't. You know, if you want to argue about Frank Martin and should he have been fired sooner, well, when? We all knew the year after the Final Four run was going to be a tough year. We all knew that.
Mm-hmm. And it obviously could not possibly have considered it before this year because the expectations were high.
Exactly.
So that wasn't an option.
Okay. Now, if you want to argue that he should be fired after this year, Frank Martin and Ray Tanner should step right in and pull that plug. You can argue that as long as you want to, but when the facts are out, which will be after the season, you have to be fair to the facts. If they're in your favor, if they're on your side, by all means,
yep,
you got a right to bitch and moan and argue about it. If they're not, you can't just continue to hammer home a garbage point like a lot of people are doing. You can't do it.
Right.
All right. So, and you can't disregard the good either. He has kept Frank Martin at South Carolina. If he didn't, there wouldn't be a Final Four run. By the way, he's kept Dawn Staley at South Carolina. The NBA has looked at Dawn Staley. Her alma mater has looked at Dawn Staley. I mean, Ohio State tried to hire Dawn Staley.
Yes.
Okay. These are there was a time where Ohio State, see ya. I'm out of here. All right. Dawn wants to be here. Every coach who's ever been at every one of them, Steve Spurrier, Will Muschamp. I've had personal conversations with these people about them. Steve Spurrier, Will Muschamp, Chad Olbrook, Mark Kingston, Dawn Staley, Frank Martin, Beverly Smith, the softball coach. We can keep on going here. One of the things they all tell you, why do you like South Carolina? Well, I love working for Ray Tanner. Well, you know, you can argue whatever, you turn that into another argument you want to, but Steve Spurrier's word matters to me.
It should.
So
people like working for Ray Tanner. I think the tone of Thamel's article, and I could have misinterpreted this, but the tone that I got was the expectation that Tanner would walk away in less than the 3 years that are left.
That is exactly, and that's the point. Like, that's my point is these are two separate arguments. Yeah. You're right. Like, it's not even an argument. These are two separate conversations. If Coach Tanner decides to walk away, that's fine. But when people see this and, oh my God, yeah, good riddance. Good. He should have been fired 3 years ago anyway. He should have been fired for hiring Chad Olbrook. He should have been fired for walking down the street. He should have been fired for chewing spearmint gum as opposed to big league chew. I mean, all these reasons that are just nonsensical.
That one was almost fireable though. Spearmint instead of big league chew.
I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like,
I got you.
Anytime, like, you watch a team lose a game and it's fire the AD, and it's like, well, wait a second here. Hold on. So I don't know what his future looks like. Certainly, I think that's going to cause a buzz. We do have David Cloninger coming up. I want to ask him, if he's poking around on this just to see. But, the rhetoric, the nonsense, the garbage that people say, when I continue to see some of these lines out there about, well, you should have never hired Chad Olbrook, you should have never hired Will Muschamp, you should have fired Frank Martin the year after he didn't make the tournament when he won the Final Four or went to the Final Four. Like, you have no idea how this works, do you? I mean, if you have a bad day at work, do you want a chance to have another day, or do you want people to just walk in and fire you?
Right.
I mean, Darren and I have both been fired before, and we were looking around going, how the hell did this happen? All right. And, there are times when it's necessary and there are times when it's not. And I haven't seen one reason to fire this athletics director. He is not the only AD out there who's had a coach or a program not perform up to snuff. I mean, it's happened. How about LSU? Is there a program in baseball more proud than LSU? Probably not. I mean, there's a bunch that are right up on par with him, but no one more proud than LSU.
I mean, you think college baseball history, recent history, you think Warren Morris. And that's one of the first things that comes to my head.
I think LSU, right? Yeah. All right. Well, how did it work out for Smoke Laval when he had to take over for Skip Burtman?
Mm-hmm.
How'd that work out? I mean, and they had to get rid of him. They got Paul Maneri, and Paul Maneri won a dadgum national championship. Sometimes things just don't work out.
Yep.
It's crazy, man. But I don't know what the future is for Ray Tanner. Personally, I hope he's around for a long time. But if he's not, he's not. And they'll find whoever's best to fill his shoes. But the big question is if there's a change that needs to be made as the basketball coach. If they decide to do that, maybe you're running up against a little bit of a interesting timeline there.
Yep.
So we'll see what the future holds for that. All right, plenty to get to. We do have Cory McCartney coming up at 12:30. We always love Cory around here. He can talk about everything. He can talk about cricket and, ice luging and all these other things. We got him on baseball, though, here in just a few minutes. We got David Cloninger at 1. We've got Scott Glaze at 1:30. And we got all of you. And we love you being around here. So hang tight. The JB and Goldwater Show, driven by Stokes Volkswagen. We'll be right back.
Peace and love at Stokes Speed Up.
This is Mike Mazzell for Stokes Volkswagen on Ashley Phosphate Road. Whatever you got planned this week, cancel it. 72 new Volkswagens will be sold in the next 72 hours at whatever price it takes. I repeat, 72 new Volkswagens will be sold in the next 72 hours. To the first 72 car buyers interested in saving up to $6,000 on a new Volkswagen for 3 days only. Every new Volkswagen and pre-owned vehicle at our bottom line price. Direct to the public, regardless of profit. Qualified purchases with interest-free financing for 60 months, and all trade-ins will be accepted. Interested parties should arrive early for best selection. You will not find a lower price anywhere in the country. 72-hour Volkswagen clearance, savings up to $6,000, 3 days only at Stokes Volkswagen on Ashley Phosphate Road or StokesVW.com.
Peace and love at Stokes Speed Up.
$16.66 per month per $1,000 for 60 months at 0% APR with 0 down. Plus tax tag includes $499.50 administration fee subject to VCI credit approval. Expires month end.
What's up, everyone? JB here. Want to tell you about my friends at McFadden Pest Control, as we do every day on our program. I love these guys. They've been in business over 40 years, and they treat our family like they've only been around for 4 days. Always doing their best work, trying to earn our business, although they know that they'll always have it. Heath and the guys take care of our quarterly, our mosquitoes, termite bonds, anything we can get them to do, they do it. They're the best. They're friends. Heath even often texts me and just asks to see how my family's doing. It's amazing. I can't say enough about McFadden Pest Control. Switch to them. You'll never have anyone else protect your home. McFaddenPestControl.com, McFaddenPestControl.com here in the Low Country.
Guys, spring is finally in the air. You know what that means? Basketball in its home stretch. March Madness promotion at Dog and Ducks, 3 locations in Mount Pleasant, Bell Hall, Park West, and Clemens Ferry Road. From now until the end of the tournament, $5 Sweetwater pints. That's right. Every Sweetwater, just $5 at Dog and Duck, Park West, Bell Hall, and their Clemens Ferry location. Plus, baseball spring training, college baseball, spring football, it's all available at Dog and Duck's 3 locations in Mount Pleasant.
Let me see what you can do.
JB and Darren on the JB and Goldwater Show.
And that's just how we do it.
Live, loud, and online.
The moon goes up and the sun goes down. We find a little spot on the edge.
Yep, 12:33. Welcome back. Thursday afternoon. I love Robbie's tweet here. Rant days are the best days. I mean, I hate to go on them, but like the social media has provided people this opportunity to say things that aren't true and influence others who don't know the truth one way or another into thinking that the non-truth is true, if that makes sense. I know there's a lot of truths in that.
There was a lot of knots and truths, but I got what you're saying.
Yeah,
I got what you're saying.
It's ridiculous. Like when some of the stuff I see that people say, I'm like, that's not. How do you
that has no basis in fact?
How do you just jump out and say crap like that? Like, I mean, dude. All right, but this is true. On Thursdays, if you're in the Low Country, buy one, get one half off cheesesteaks at DB's Cheesesteaks, dbscheesesteaks.com for their entire menu. Whatever you order, don't forget to order the boardwalk fries with it. Those come with the Old Bay seasoning. If you've never eaten there, if you're anywhere in the Low Country of South Carolina, you've never eaten at DB's, try the buffalo chicken cheesesteak. It'll change your life. It'll change your eating habits.
The way you speak about it almost changes lives. Yeah. I mean, there's just a love behind that.
Well, that's what we're doing tonight. That's
Yeah,
what we're doing
good,
tonight. We're continuing this week-long birthday celebration for my little girls.
You should.
With DB's cheesesteaks. So that's what we're gonna do. Cory McCartney is we got him.
We got him.
All right,
rocking a hat this time.
Live from hot Atlanta, soon to be Georgia, is Cory McCartney. What's up, man?
You guys got any post-workout, so that's why I got the hat on today. But so how old are the twins now? They 3?
They're 2.
2. What do you get 2-year-old twins?
Yeah, I screwed that up.
Alcohol for the parents?
No. I got them these little. We have this race car thing coming that they can get on and ride down.
Oh, that's cool.
That's neat. That'll be here tomorrow in time for their little party. But I got them those little Crayola boards you told me to get.
Yeah, that we got Grayson.
Yeah, they're great. The marker is everywhere and all over the tables, and we can't get it off, and they write on each other. So,
nice.
Yeah,
it's a fun toy for them.
Major mistake.
That's what matters. Yeah. They're having fun.
We got them bike helmets too. They have these little scooters, and they got books, and they I don't know what they have. So much stuff. They have individual little trampolines coming tomorrow as well. I mean, I don't know.
They're the little trampolines that they hold onto the bar with, right?
That's right.
All right. Yeah. So the Easter Bunny brought a trampoline, the big trampoline with like the whole like cage and all that stuff to my house 4 years ago, and within 2 months, my youngest broke his arm. So the Easter Bunny doesn't pick up emergency room bills. It's crazy.
No. Yeah, the Easter Bunny doesn't drop off health insurance or pay.
None of it.
No.
He's in and out.
Maybe next year.
I thought that times had changed, but I guess not. All right, Cory, welcome aboard. I'm glad that you're able to pop in from your workout here. Before we get to the Braves and everything, this is really, really cool, and I'm so glad that I came across this early this morning. I first saw it from ESPN's Jeff Passan that baseball will hold a sport-wide Luke Gehrig Day starting this season on June the 2nd, and I really wanted to get your thoughts on this. I think this is tremendous for the sport of baseball and for the world.
Yeah, without question. I mean, they've celebrated Jackie Robinson and Roberto Clemente, for such a long time, and I think the amount of awareness and push for fundraising and whatnot for ALS these past few years, I think this is a long deserved thing for baseball to get involved in and trying to get in front of this and honor Lou Gehrig, while also continuing to raise those funds and awareness for ALS. So I think this just makes a lot of sense when you consider. I mean, not that you want to. I mean, it's somewhat obvious. This is a horrible disease that's literally linked to one of the greatest baseball players of all time. It's always made sense for baseball to have an involvement with it. Obviously they've done so much for cancer research and stand up to cancer and all that. I think it's been a long time coming, and it makes a ton of sense for them to get behind this.
So I was reading about this morning, and I never knew this. I never knew this. I'm going to call it a stat, I guess, about his death, which was June 2nd, 1941. That's why they're celebrating this on June 2nd. But I had no idea that the day that he died was the same day of the first start of his 2,130 consecutive games played streak. Did anybody know that? Did you know that, Cory?
No, that's wild.
I had no idea.
So June 2nd is the date of his first start also.
The first start that started the 2,130 in a row.
Yeah.
That was his first start of that streak, and that was also the day he died.
That's crazy.
1920, or I can't remember what year it was that he started the streak. 25? Yeah, 1925, right? And then he kept going. Yeah, it's crazy stuff. And I think he has the most infamous, at least infamous quoted part of a speech, or whatever you want to call it, in maybe the history of sports. I mean, we've heard a bunch of great ones, but anytime you hear that part of that speech, Cory, we all know exactly who it was, where it was, and what it was about.
Yeah, I mean, and obviously it's all tied to this in hindsight, knowing the way what was to become of him and what awaited him. I certainly think it's it's hard to remember a retirement speech that in sports that carried that much weight. And obviously when now what the guy was about to go through, I think again it just carries that much more. But I mean, I think this is a great thing. I mean, there's been it's the kind of disease where we just didn't, I don't think, gave it the attention it deserved for a long time. And thankfully, the Ice Bucket Challenge, all that stuff. I mean, we've seen so many things over the years that have pushed it to the forefront. And again, it's about time.
No question. No question. All right, Cory, give us an update from Braves spring training. What have you learned over the last week? Give us the juice, man. We need the juice.
So some interesting stuff. I mean, we talked to Ender and Ciarte yesterday, and I think there's this consensus that after a few down years, that Christian Pache is just going to come in and take that starting center field job. And yesterday, Ender, said I can't allow myself to think like a backup player, because once I do that, then I consider that I'm a backup player. And certainly he wants to keep that positive mindset. But he's been playing pretty well. He made a diving catch earlier this week to save a couple runs against the Twins, and went out and got a hit. Playing some decently well so far. Freddie Freeman is obviously there, and shared. Honestly, was just really candid about what him and his wife Chelsea have gone through with some infertility issues, and obviously with him having twin boys one from a surrogate, one from Chelsea, within a few weeks of each other. He's obviously back in camp now. There's some debate whether or not he hits second or third in this lineup. I think without the designated hitter and the prospect of a pitcher holding a bat, it looks as though he's probably going to slide back to third, but that's not yet been decided. And obviously from the young pitchers end, Ian Anderson looked really good the first time out. Snicker had some interesting comments about him, just how composed he's seen since the second he walked into the clubhouse. And there's inevitably going to be some setbacks for this kid, but I think by and large, everyone around him believes that the mindset and his approach and the way he carries himself is going to ultimately allow him to overcome whatever obstacles might come in front of him during his first full season.
How about Acuna? I mean, the first story we had was out of Toronto camp that Vlad Guerrero had slimmed down, however much he'd slimmed down, and he's fast. And then you get basically the same thing coming from the Braves. And Acuna had this, he's got an off season where he's trimmed down, he's flying, he feels good. How different does he look?
Yeah, I mean, they say he's lost considerable weight. We don't know an exact figure on that. I'm sure we'll get him in the next couple of days and can kind of get an exact number on that. But obviously, seems faster, looks faster. The power is obviously still there. I think the thing with him last year, was maybe pressing a little bit as he was trying to follow up that 40-40 season in a truncated year. So I think he's going to make a go at it now. I mean, we'll see what he's able to do. It's been interesting. The guys who have gotten past 30 to 35 steals have had considerable drop offs that next year, only getting around 19 steals per season, coming off of those 35 or 30 to 35 plus steal seasons when they made a run at 40-40. So we'll see what he's able to do. Certainly, a lot of it is helped by the guys around him in this lineup, but we'll see what's ahead for him. But obviously looking a little bit faster early on in camp.
Is Acuna still considered the Braves leadoff hitter?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. It's funny. A couple of years ago, when they tried to move him down to 4, Brian Snicker moved him back up to lead off, and he would joke multiple times saying that dumb A move that the manager pulled, putting him down in 4th. I'll never make that mistake again. So I would be surprised if he does move him out of that spot. I think it's just so natural. And I think they love the prospect of this guy's ability. I mean, he's done it 15, 16 times now in his career to go up and hit a leadoff home run and to already have a team down against you 1-0. I mean, that's basically a 2-run lead coming off of one swing in a game. So I think they love that prospect for what Acuna can do at leadoff.
I know that you've got a column up at talkingchop.com as well about Freddie Freeman and where he may hit in this order. But if the DH is not available in the National League this year, and I would encourage folks to actually go read the column, there's a lot of information in here. What does that mean for Freddie behind Acuna?
Yeah, so Freddie's he knows the deal. He knows that if he hits second, he's going to get more plate appearances. If he hits third, then conceivably he's going to get more opportunities to drive a guy in, with a better bat potentially at the bottom of that lineup. But, I think just this notion that if you have a pitcher hitting, then all of a sudden Freddie needs to slide down to third is, it's this old school thinking that I think they need to get away from it. I kind of dug up these numbers. If you look from 14 to 19, so full seasons, no DH, obviously, in the National League during that time period. There was one, obviously, in the American League. Mike Trout has more plate appearances than anybody during that span, hitting second. He's averaged just a little over 4.43 per game. Freeman, meanwhile, has more at-bats, plate appearances than anybody at third. And 4.37. I know that those are negligible numbers, but if you take that through the duration of a season, you're talking about Freddie potentially getting 10 or more at bats a season and hitting second over third. Obviously there's been some movement around that lineup. Dansby's hit second, Ozzie Albies has hit second, but I think to have a bat like Freddie Freeman in up to the plate more times than you can in a season just makes a lot of sense, regardless of whether or not a pitcher comes into play and you're worried about how many runs potentially Freddie can drive in.
I'll say this. I pointed it out to Jamie yesterday. The Nationals debuted an interesting lineup yesterday, at least the top of it. The bottom wasn't exactly starters, but it had Soto hitting second. It's similar to what they're doing here with Freeman. It's an opportunity for him to see more pitches, get on, impact the game more.
Yeah, and I mean, if you can go back and look from the beginning of the designated hitter in 1973 until last year, and there are only 5 times during that time period when the National League's number 2 hitters drove in more runs than the American Leagues. And on the flip side, it's about 17 years during that time period that the National League has led in RBIs out of the number 3 spot. So there's just been this really old thinking that, okay, if that pitcher is going to hit, then I have to move my best bat down. And I think the American League has been, hip to this for a long time. Get your best bat in the most amount of opportunities at the plate. And certainly putting Freeman at 2, it just makes so much more sense.
Cory McCartney in Atlanta, Georgia, 12:45 on a Thursday afternoon. What type of influence or impact has Chipper had on spring training this year?
Yeah, this is great. Freddie talked a lot about this yesterday. Obviously, there's just the resume of a guy who hit over 300 from both sides of the plate coming in, and having that Hall of Famer on your coaching staff as a part-time hitting consultant. But Freddie was pretty open about what he's learned from Chipper. He said the guy might talk to you for an hour, 2 hours, but it's about those little nuggets, those little things that you can take and then apply to your game. He said back in 2013, after the 2012 season, he had a long conversation with Chipper, and Chipper talked to him about keeping his hands on the the line of the batter's box through the swing, the plane of the swing. And he said it changed his life. I mean, you go back and look at the numbers, and he just skyrocketed from that point on. It was only about 12% above league average in that 2012 season. Since then, he's not been below 30% above. So Freddie had obviously a huge bonus there in learning some stuff from Chipper. And he said, whether it's a veteran, whether it's a rookie, you're going to learn a ton from Chipper Jones. So this is a big deal for these Braves hitters, and Freddie Freeman, obviously, exhibit A of that.
Well, I mean, we all know who Chipper Jones was and what he did, what he accomplished as a player. But I think one of the things that's interesting, too, his role with this organization right now and working with the hitters, he was a switch hitter. And so he's able to see it from both sides of the plate. There's not anybody that's going to step up there that can ask Chipper Jones a question that he might not be able to answer because he's seen it from both sides for, 25 years of his life.
Yeah, and I mean, he's been different kinds of hitters, right? I mean, he's obviously been that speedier guy that's played in the outfield. He's been a guy who, he's been an infielder. He's obviously, spent a long time in the majors. So he's kind of seen things go from the juiced up era to the high exit velocity swing plane era. So he's seen like different transitions throughout the game as well. And certainly Ozzie Albies. This is a guy who is a switch hitter. He's struggled, hitting a lot from the left side of the plate. But, having Chipper there, and Chipper's was up in Gwinnett when Ozzie was up there working with him. The guy's an absolute hitting savant. And, I say that, without, any hesitation. I mean, he just gets it, and you have a conversation with him, and it's hard not to pick up on something that, again, as Freeman said, you find those nuggets, you apply them. I think this is going to be it's going to be really interesting to see the impact he has on Braves hitters.
So early in camp here, Cory, but are there any of the younger names, maybe a non-roster invitee or somebody that was considered to at least start the year in either AA or AAA that has caught the attention of the organization, somebody we should keep an eye on?
Yeah, so Michael Harris is, this is a 2019 third-round draft pick out of Georgia Stockbridge High School, 19-year-old kid. And Snickers talked about him each of the last 2 days. He just loves the way this kid carries himself. He said that last year when Nick Markakis was up at the alternate site before he came back from opting out, that he came back to Atlanta and was just raving to Snicker about Michael Harris. He said, you got to see this kid, just the composure, the way he carries himself. He's gotten him in each of the last couple of days. He had a hit on Tuesday. He ended up grounding out yesterday, but they just love this kid's makeup. Snicker said that he would put a lot of money on this kid being a young big leaguer someday. So this is definitely a name to keep in your back of your mind without question.
What's the status of Nick Markakis?
He's unsigned. Actually, that was brought up to Snicker yesterday, right after he made that comment. He does not have a home right now. That was kind of brought up in terms of what happens leadership wise in that clubhouse. And, Snit said that he obviously, you can't replace a Markakis, but it doesn't feel as though they're lacking in leadership. But yeah, right now, Markakis does not have a home. So we'll see how that sorts itself out.
Wow. Interesting stuff there. All right, let's dance around baseball a little bit. Found out early this morning that former Gamecock Jackie Bradley's got a new home. He is headed to Milwaukee, and he's on a 2-year deal worth $24 million up there. What do you think about that? I think they are going to play some very good outfield defense in Milwaukee. When you think about Lorenzo Cain and Christian Yelich, I mean, this might be the best defensive outfield in baseball. I mean, this is going to be an extremely fun group to watch. And then obviously they go out and get Colton Wong as well at second base. So they're going to play some good D up in Milwaukee without question. So he has an opt out after this season too. So I think it's kind of a smart deal for him. The market wasn't exactly, I think, where he wanted it to be. And now if teams play 162 games and he has a good season, you opt out, you go back into the market and see if teams are a little bit more willing to spend, after a year, which potentially they don't lose billions of dollars. So, I think this is a smart move for him. All right, let's go back a couple of days. Darren and I had a fun conversation about this. I was a little frustrated when I saw it initially, and then I did some digging, and I was wrong. This actually happened in the Braves Red Sox game. You know what I'm referencing here? It was they're called. I think first of all, the term is poor. They're calling it the mercy rule, where coaches or a manager can yank a guy when he's at 20 plus pitches and end the inning and send him back out there. I listened to the Jim Rome thing you tagged me in the other day. Although there were some parts of it that were funny, I think Jim did miss some points, just like I had missed a couple of points as well. This mercy rule, Cory, do you have additional information on it? How often it's being used in spring training? We've only seen this one instance of it. I want to certainly get hear your thoughts on what you think about it. Is this something we should expect more of? And what is the purpose of it? Yeah, I mean, obviously, I think you're trying to take away, wear and tear on guys. I mean, I guess I don't necessarily like the idea of taking them out of stress situations because it's hard to replicate stress situations into a season if you're not going to actually do it, within a spring training game. But you can prematurely end an inning if a pitcher's thrown more than 20 pitches. I mean, that's the baseline of it. Obviously, that happened as you mentioned, Red Sox and Braves. I think when it comes to spring training games, and again, obviously you're trying to replicate what happens in a major league game. These games don't matter. I mean, so this is how I know we watch spring training games and we get worked up in it. This has always been, so covering spring training baseball, this was always the thing that I kind of, two things. One was when Tim Hudson was with the Braves, I was at Port St. Lucie for a Braves Mets game. I watched Tim Hudson running the warning track during the game to get warmed up. So that number one tells you how the veterans think of this. And then guys leave in the middle of the game. So if a starter kid's pulled out of a game and it's on the road, he will get in his car and leave. Right. So why are we getting so worked up about games that obviously the players are nowhere near as compelled to even watch the whole thing or pay attention to it, to the point where Hudson's running in the outfield during a game? You're just trying to get through this and just get to the season. So I'm okay with tweaks. Obviously you're not going to see this happen in an actual game. At least I hope not. But I'm fine with whatever in a spring training game. There was I'd get not an amendment to the rule. It's popped up twice. It was Richards with Boston, and then a day or two ago, I want to say it was the Orioles. There's another part of the rule where instead of the inning just ending and you just start it up again, you could pull the pitcher, replace him, and then when the inning's finally over, put the starting pitcher back in for the next inning if he's cleared 20 pitches. That just happened in spring training too. Well, see, your initial comments, Cory, were what I was thinking when I first saw this. Darren and I talked about it. I said, well, now wait a second here. you got to learn to work through this. I mean, if you've thrown 20 pitches because you've walked the bases loaded, basically, and they're just going to go get you, that's not doing you any good for the season. Guys are coming up with chances, young guys having at bat with guys with runners on. They're missing out on an opportunity to perform. I actually reached out to a buddy of mine who went through, I think, 7 spring trainings, and he said, and this is what he told me, he said it's about up and downs. They want to get these guys up and down. They want to get them up and down. So you'll probably see that more often with the starters. If you're just getting an inning worth of work that day, they might not be cutting you at 20 pitches. But if you're starting, and let's say you're scheduled to go 3 up and downs that day, or 4 up and downs, or 5 up and downs, wherever you are in spring training, it's about getting them up and down, getting them used to the rest, coming back out and throwing another inning, getting them used to the red. Does that make sense? Have you heard that?
Yeah, I mean, certainly they have a cap on what they're expecting from these guys. I mean, for a starter, you might want to only get them through the order 2 times. You might, that's why you see an Ian Anderson, when he pitched 2 days ago, looking really sharp that first inning. That second one, he gets down to 2 outs and gives up 3 singles and gets out of it, and his day's over with. I mean, that was the game plan for him that day. So it's a set amount of pitches, but again, it's these games, they literally don't matter. And they don't matter to the players. They don't matter. It's just, let's get through it. And I think they take on even less of an importance when guys are already in shape when they show up to camp. These are not the days where a guy shows up 30 pounds overweight to camp, and now we got to spend a month trying to get this guy ready for the season. You've seen Acuna's workouts. These dudes are ready to roll when they get in camp. So, I think you could shorten spring training, and everybody would probably be pretty happy with that.
I agree.
You took me right into the question after that. Then, is there a chance? The NFL just did it. Is there a chance that baseball shortens spring training?
As long as there's money to be made and tickets to be sold and all that stuff, no.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just such a different animal than preseason football, where I know if I go to the third preseason game for the NFL, there's no way in the world, I'm going to see the starting quarterback on the field. But if I go to a Major League Baseball game, pretty good chance if it's the Braves, I'm going to see Freddie Freeman play most of the spring.
Yeah, that's a good point. No, it's a great point. Yeah, I mean, you're right though. There's a chance. I mean, they could shorten it maybe by a week. I mean, it's about arms. Spring training is more about arms than anything.
Yeah,
it's more about arms, and I get it. You want to get these guys ready to go. Unless you're Sandoval, sometimes you can show up and look however you want to look. But I guess this year was. Well, you said that
it's
dark,
black.
Yeah,
it's slimming.
That's right. That damn.
Hey, he made a jump play the other day to make a tag. So I don't know. There's some spring in that step still.
Well, yeah, but jumping, you gotta go straight. Just moving your legs to the side to where it looks like you jump doesn't count. That's what I do. That's probably not what you do. That's what I do, at least.
It's an athletic maneuver.
That's right. Any other nuggets you want to pass along before we let you run?
I think I mentioned it before, but Sean Casmar, I mean, I just think he's one of the best stories of camp so far. Hits obviously a 2-run home run, in the Grapefruit League opener. I don't know how long this guy's going to be in camp, but just a story of perseverance. I ended up posting. It's in my article. Also shared it on Twitter, an interview with him from a couple years ago, and just this guy's approach and mindset. Being 36 years old and having not been in the majors since 2008 when he faced CC Sabathia in his debut with the Padres. This guy's still banging around, still chasing the dream. So one of the best stories in camp. We'll just see how long it lasts this time.
Yeah, it is a great story. I'm sorry, I can't admit this. I made myself a note. I would ask you about it yesterday. I've got a couple minutes to spare. So, and this is from ESPN. This is strictly from ESPN, but I'm turning this into another conversation. Kylie McDaniel, who works for ESPN, listed the top 100 2021 MLB prospects.
Oh yeah, you were teasing this yesterday.
Yes, he does not have. I'm sorry, the top 100 MLB draft prospects in 2021. He does not have either Jack Leiter or what did we say it was?
Kumar, maybe?
Kumar Rocker?
It's not Kumar.
Yeah,
it's
he
Kumar.
said it's K-A-H is how you pronounce it.
Kumar. Kumar Rocker. He does not have either one of them as the top prospect. He has a shortstop who's actually committed to Vanderbilt as the top prospect. I disagree. I think that both of those guys at this point in time are 1 and 2, and certainly this can change as the year moves along as they shove it up everybody's rear end, except South Carolina's, of course. But But I want to ask you, just from a draft perspective, what we've seen, the trends we've seen, we have big league ready arms, Corey, in college baseball. These guys aren't grinding for 3 or 4 years in minor league ball anymore. They're getting up there now quickly within a year or two. Casey Mize, and we keep mentioning names. So I tend to believe that the better, safer prospect these days is the big college arm. Is there truth in that statement?
Oh, I think without question. I mean, look at last year. I mean, obviously Spencer Torkelson goes number 1, Arizona State with the Tigers. But certainly these guys are getting fat. They're more prepared. They're getting faster. The game's trending younger. I think it makes a ton of sense if you've got an early pick. You take a guy who's a seasoned starting pitcher who's shown you he can do it, as opposed to somebody you've got to develop for a full, maybe 4 years before you get him up to the major. You're talking about maybe 2 years, with a rocker or a lighter. Getting up if you take that guy number 1. I think it just makes so much more sense in today's game, the way everything's trending. You get that arm that's shown you he can do it, and obviously involves a lot less development.
Yeah, Jordan Lawler is the young man's name who is the top prospect according to ESPN. But yeah, I'm with you. I think the first pick in the draft this year is held by Pittsburgh. I'm pretty sure.
It makes sense.
Thinks the Pirates and the Rangers, and both of them need pitching. So, if you go with rocker or lighter, I think either one of them would be fine. But anyways, just I know the Tigers are sitting there at 3 going, don't take him.
Take the kid.
Hey,
take the kid.
Yeah.
He is going to be good.
Don't do it. We'd love to have it. We'll ask our friend Grayson Griner about that. Grayson might have another big arm to catch up there in Detroit. All right, man. On that note, we'll let you run. Really good stuff as always. Hope you have a wonderful week on your workout regime or all that stuff that you do. We follow along on Insta chat or whatever it is
on Instagram. The wheels now are they is it rollerblade, is it skateboard, what do you have the wheels?
Oh, that's my longboard stuff. So yeah, I have longboards. So
okay.
Skateboards.
I got you. All right,
hang loose.
Yeah, good stuff. I'm gonna later on this afternoon I'm gonna head to the house and pour a drink and drive my golf cart around the neighborhood. So I'll tweet that out for you.
All right, sounds good. Thanks guys.
See ya. There you go, Corey McCartney, of course, in Atlanta, Georgia. All right, time for a timeout. When we return, David Cloninger with the Post-Courier. A lot to get into with the Carolina Athletics Department. That's up next right here on the JB and Goldwater Show, protected by McFadden Pest Control. What's up, everyone? JB here. Want to tell you about my friends at McFadden Pest Control, as we do every day on our program. I love these guys. They've been in business over 40 years, and they treat our family like they've only been around for 4 days. Always doing their best work, trying to earn our business, although they know that they'll always have it. Heath and the guys take care of our quarterly, our mosquitoes, termite bonds, anything we can get them to do, they do it. They're the best. They're friends. Heath even often texts me and just asks to see how my family's doing. It's amazing. I can't say enough about McFadden Pest Control. Switch to them. You'll never have anyone else protect your home. McFaddenPestControl.com, McFaddenPestControl.com here in the Low Country.
At Patriots Point Naval and Maritime Museum, families walk in the footsteps of our nation's heroes, the brave ones who risk their lives to defend our way of life. Home to the aircraft carrier USS Yorktown, USS Laffey, and the USS Clamagore, there's more than 1 million square feet of exhibit space to roam. White Glove certified, we have several new health safety measures in place to enhance the visitor experience. Come for the day and leave feeling inspired. One of the most impressive museums in the country, located right here in Mount Pleasant. Visit patriotspoint.org for more. We'll see you soon.
Bourbon and whiskey drinkers of Charleston. Paddock and Whiskey on James Island and the Terrace Shopping Center on Maybank is your home for the finest and rarest bourbon and whiskey drinks in the Low Country. This is where I hang out. Go meet my friends Reed and Chris and try one of their exclusive barrel pick bourbons. They have the largest private barrel collection in the state, and let their knowledgeable staff recommend your next pour. PaddockandWhiskey.com. Let not your heart be troubled. Paddock and Whiskey is here for your next double. We're all friends around here. Paddock and Whiskey, proud partners of the JB and Goldwater Show.
This is Scott Glaze, head golf professional at the Links at Stono Ferry, located on the outskirts of Charleston, South Carolina. I'm inviting you to tee it up on one of the most scenic and challenging courses in the Low Country. Our back nine is highlighted with 3 holes that border the Intercoastal Waterway. Visit StonoFerryGolf.com to book tee times and discover all that Stono Ferry has to offer. The Links at Stono Ferry is a former South Carolina Golf Course of the Year and is also home to the College of Charleston men's and women's golf teams. Come see us. We would love to have you. StonoFerryGolf.com. patriotspoint.com.
Hi, I'm Chris Half, Public Information Officer at the Patriots Point Naval and Maritime Museum. We're home of the mighty USS Yorktown, USS Laffey, Clemson, and Vietnam experience. And we're a proud partner of the JB and Goldwater Show. We invite you and your family to come see us and enjoy a day on Charleston Harbor. Visit patriotspoint.org for more information. And now, it is my honor to present the National Anthem.
JB and Goldwater Show. Live, loud, and online.
All right, final hour on this Thursday afternoon. Welcome back to JB and Goldwater Show, driven by Stokes Volkswagen, StokesVW.com. We're on the JB and Goldwater app. That's free. Download it into your phone. You can watch and listen to our program, JBandGoldwaterShow.com. The anthem, of course, brought to you by our friends at Patriots Point. It is gorgeous, and it's going to be great all weekend. Head over to Patriots Point, tour the Laffey, the Clemson, the Vietnam War exhibit, and the USS Yorktown, patriotspoint.org for tickets and more. Darren Goldwater and Jamie Bradford here until, as I mentioned, 2 p.m. Follow us on social media at Sports Media JB, at Darren Goldwater, and at JB and Goldwater. All right, before we get David Cloninger in here, I do want to mention this in baseball. So Georgia State pounded Georgia Tech last night 10-1. They are 4-6 on the year. The Panthers are. Okay. Just a couple of years ago, by the way, they were 15-41. But they're 4-6 on the year. But listen to the schedule that they've played to get to 4-6. 4 games against West Virginia, 1 against Georgia, 4 against Vanderbilt, 1 against Georgia Tech. All right. And here's what's coming up. 3 against Tennessee and Knoxville, 1 at Florida, 3 at Kentucky, 1 at Clemson. Oh, and then they get into the Sun Belt schedule. I mean,
they'll be ready.
If you add it all up, I think they play like 12 SEC games. That's a third, a little over a third of what you play in the SEC. Remarkable schedule for Georgia State. All right, this guy's pretty remarkable as well. It's our friend and yours, David Cloninger, with the Post and Courier on Twitter at DCPNC. What's up, man?
Not too much, Jamie. You guys doing all right?
Yeah. You know, let's see. The sun is shining. Gamecock baseball 7-0. Carolina basketball. The swimming and diving team is doing really well. Spring training is set to go. We're fine, man.
That's pretty much how it is around here. You know, I haven't heard any bad reports out of Braves spring training yet. So, right now I'm proceeding forward that the next hour should be okay.
Yeah, it should be fun.
Baby steps, David. That's good. That's
right.
good.
And we know that you just met with Mark Kingston a little bit ago. We're going to ask you about that conversation here in just a couple of minutes. But hey, look, DC. So I do want to ask you if you've done any poking around on this. I don't know if it's quite appropriate yet, but we're going to ask the question because we discussed it at the top of the program. Pete Thamel, of course, with Yahoo Sports, put out a report about the future of some college basketball coaches in the game right now, and fourth on his list was the future of Frank Martin. But at the end of that excerpt that he wrote was the future of Ray Tanner, and he stated that he doesn't expect Ray Tanner, based on conversations I guess he's had, to be around the length of what's left on his contract, which I think right now is about 3 years. So I thought that was a very interesting add-in to his thoughts about the future of Frank in Columbia. Have you are there rumors out there about that? I don't know of any. Is it worth poking around on? What are your thoughts on that statement?
Oh, it's always worth poking around on, because you have to do that with any coach and administrator. But I can tell you that Ray Tanner will be here as long as Ray Tanner wants to be here. I haven't heard that he's feeling bad or, got that in mind, imminent, anything like that. He'll be here as long as he wants to be here. I think a lot of what Pete Thamel is reporting is probably some blowback or residue left over from football season. And, of course, you had the Muschamp tenure ending. But, no, there's nothing imminent on that move. I know that I think it's a 3-year deal or, 2.5, whatever. But I would not expect that. Put it this way, people don't need to be keeping an eye on that.
Okay. Yeah, well, I didn't think so either, but you're the right man to ask that question. That's why we figured we'd throw it at you. So Coach Tanner did yesterday speak with Jay and those guys up at 107.5 The Game and got into a bunch of conversations about the athletics department, specific sports, and things of that nature. One of the things they did talk about was attendance policies at South Carolina. We look around the country. Ole Miss put out a statement last night. Starting this weekend, they will begin to increase attendance at baseball games. They won't be full steam ahead, but there will be increased attendance. Dondi Ploman at Tennessee has spoken, the chancellor. She says that they are certainly gearing up towards full capacity at Neyland this fall, and we'll see what happens before that. We've seen the reports out of Alabama, College Station. We've heard Scott Strickland at Florida. Now Coach Tanner has spoken. What have you learned about South Carolina's attendance policies in the near future and in the distant future?
Well, right now they're going to keep the status quo, guys, and keep attendance limited to what they're doing. Obviously the governor came out with his mandate, but he also recommended that you keep kind of a 50% capacity as a little bit of a benchmark. So right now they're going to keep with what they have. That could always change, but you do have to look at, once you get more fans in, you also have to have more security. You have to have more cleaning measures. You have to look at a case of like, do we need to open more concession stands? Having more fans, of course, means more money for the gate. It also means more money you got to spend to staff the game. So right now I think they're in a good place of where they are. That could possibly change. But, of course, right now the big question is football. So they're not going to put out any kind of grand declaration right now saying like, oh, yeah, we're looking forward to a sold-out Williams-Bryson fall. But, of course, they want that. Of course they do. And so they're just going to see how things go with COVID through the spring and through the summer and then proceed from there. But certainly the hope is to have all restrictions off by football stadium. And obviously season tickets are on sale now. And they took the step of saying like, we're actually knocking off a huge chunk of money for season ticket renewals. You could get them for, I believe it's $320,
right,
which was the price in 2010 when Shane Beamer was last here. So, that's a little bit of a goodwill gesture. They could have just stuck at the same or even increased them because everybody is trying to make up this COVID-affected shortfall. But they said, no, you better not do that because there's a lot of fans who may have to be coaxed back into the stadium. And how do you do that? You give them lower prices.
Well, that's a good point.
They just announced this, I think it was 2 days ago, DC. Are there any early returns on the success it's having, or we need to give it some time?
On the season tickets?
Yeah, season ticket sales.
Oh, yeah, there's no early returns yet. But, just from a personal standpoint, I know some fans who had to let their season tickets lapse for one reason or another, mostly financial related. They said, I'm thinking of renewing again. So, at least there's some excitement back there and saying like, well, if you do it now, they'll go ahead and get those prices. And they think if they like it enough, they could be able to afford any kind of significant jump that may happen going into next year.
Yep.
That's kind of the drawback of the 320. It's like, well, okay, if you get them this year, are you going to have to pay a whole lot more next year because you want to get back to your regular level?
Mm-hmm.
It's like, well, that's a chance you can have to take because let's just say you pay $320 and go for the season tickets. The Gamecocks go 8-4 this year. Well, I think you'd feel a little better about having to spend more money. So we'll see how all that goes. But right now, I think a lot of people are excited, but I don't have any round numbers for you.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, like this is great, and it's great timing for them. Obviously, the pandemic has influenced this decision, but the change in leadership with Shane Beamer, there is optimism back in the program, and obviously, I think that's what's going to fuel much of this. But let's all be honest, right? At the end of the day, wins.
That's it.
Wins are going to sell your tickets, DC. We all know that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, everybody loves a winner, and it's why it's always tripped me out how Ray Tanner really decided a couple years ago to start saying we got to start focusing on the game day experience. We got to have a great game day experience. And I said, well, the best game day experience I know of is when the team you pull for wins.
Right.
I mean, what are we even talking about here? But, there's a lot to go into. You want people to come to your place and make them as comfortable as possible while they're there. Because at the end of the day, you can't control if the team wins or loses. So you have to do everything you can to make sure that everything but the result, if that's not a win, can also be a win.
Coach Tanner also spoke about the newly announced partnership with Altius Sports, which is an NIL advisory and education firm. What have you learned about this company and what their association with the University of South Carolina will be moving forward?
Well, USC's been proactive. They know that NIL is coming. You don't want to have it passed and all of a sudden sit in your lap, and a student athlete comes in and says, oh, by the way, this car dealership down the street has offered me $1,000 a month to be on a billboard and shoot some commercials for you, and then you're kind of left with your pants down and you don't know if that's right or you could do that or how it's going to go. So they've been proactive in looking for a firm to kind of help them through this. It's to kind of set up guidelines, but right now there's no kind of guidelines to set because you don't know what the laws are going to be. I know that everybody and their sister has introduced some kind of NIL package to Congress, but none of those have actually been passed, I think, except out in California. So once, those laws are passed, and once everybody starts getting together and seeing what the NCAA has to say about it, Altius will get with USC and say, okay, here's what we'll do. All these athletes come in the summer for like a seminar. You talk to a bunch of different people about how to talk to the media, about how to deal with the police here in town. Things like that perhaps a quote unquote normal student wouldn't have to do. So this will fall right into that. They'll have somebody come in and speak to them and say, people will be offering you. And I'm sure that they'll tell them that's fine because it's legal now, but you do have to come and tell us about it so we can make sure everything about it is legal. It's going to be a whole lot of hoops to jump through, but it's just something that USC needed to go ahead and do and be aligned with this for the day when NIL is passed into existence, because it's coming. And you don't want to be caught behind when it finally does.
Yeah, Ray Tanner yesterday called it imminent. It is coming. We all know that. On Twitter at DCPNC, of course, David covering the Gamecocks for the Post and Courier. Shane Beamer in the past, DC, has mentioned he thinks it would be nice to have some fans around spring practice this year. But obviously that would come with COVID regulations and rules and guidelines based on who, how many, where can they be in the ballpark, not in the ballpark, things of that nature. Have you heard anything? Give us the latest on that, if there is an update on that.
Well, right now they still hope to do it, but I guess as we're 16 days out from the start of spring practice. I have not yet to see a spring practice schedule, so I'm not sure when all the breaks will align within that schedule and that kind of thing. Like if they're going to do all 15 in a row or spaced out over a few weeks, how they're going to do that. So that is the hope. But COVID's in charge, and I really think until they say, hey, there's absolutely, minimal risk, then they're not going to do it. I mean, it's just one of those things where you don't want to have to be the one to explain if this happens that the outbreak started on your place, So, right now they're using Gamecock Park as a vaccination site. That's obviously right over there by the ops building. I don't know if they want to try to say, well, if you just got your vaccination, maybe you could come over. But they would have to limit that to so many small groups. Right now, the plan is like, they want to do it, but it's probably not going to be real feasible to do it. Spring game, however, is a different story. To me, at least in some early conversations I've had, you guys know the details. Usually it's free to go to the spring game, and you sit in the east stands, the west stands.
West
West stands at Williams-Brice. And everybody can come. What they might do this year, at least looking at it, is saying, well, if you've got a restriction on there, and normally 20,000, 25,000 people might show up, why not just go ahead and open the west stands too? And that would easily take care of the spacing requirements to get 20 or 25,000 people in there. So they'll see what that does. But right now, they're still planning to have a spring game with as full of a capacity as they can manage. And they'll go from there. But as for the actual regular practices, we'll see. And that goes for the media too. If they tell me I can be there, I'll be there. If not, I'll sit back here at my counter and do my Zoom and do the usual.
That's right. Just continue to work with the adjustments everybody's had to make over the last year. All right, let's get to baseball here. Gamecocks averaging a little over 10 runs per game. David Cloninger now 7-0 after the 19-8 throttling of Winthrop earlier this week. We mentioned at the top of the week that it was very interesting for the program because Clemson, they swept them this weekend with those pair of walk-offs. And, of course, we want to hear your comments on that series victory as well. And then next week, you got to go to Texas. And that's kind of where everybody has focused themselves in the non-conference schedule. And people kind of forgot that Mercer was standing right there in between them, a really good program that's going to come to Founders Park this weekend. Going to Winthrop, going to your hometown, Rock Hill, earlier this week for the first time in over 20 years. I thought that could be a challenge, but no, they just went out there and waxed them, and now they're going to try to do the same this weekend. But here they are at 7-0. This is the best start in a long time. They're one of only 3 undefeated teams in the D1 baseball top 25.
That's what you want to see, Jamie. They're undefeated, they're playing well, and they won the rivalry series. Of course, that's how you want to start at South Carolina every year. But it's like Mark Kingston said, you don't want to talk about it too much because you don't want to jinx it. It's like talking about a no-hitter in the 7th inning. And as good as the Clemson weekend was, and it was great, nobody gave out any tickets to Omaha after that weekend. So the main thing they said, and including trying to avoid looking ahead to Texas or to Vandy or Florida or anybody else and focus on Mercer, they each have a wristband that they wear. It just says 1-0 today. I think this group has a good head on its shoulders collectively and said, look, you can't take the next step till you take the one right in front of you. So just focus on today's game. Now, I'm going to go ahead and break a lot of hearts. They're not going to go undefeated. They're not going to go 56-0. I mean, this game will handle you in a hurry, and it'll catch up to you. It's just games are like, just couldn't put the bats together that day. Or like, man, you lost a fly ball in the lights, and that's what hurt you. But the fact is they're playing really well right now. They can hit the ball. They're showing everything they need to do to be a ball club there at the end of the year because they've got depth throughout the team. They've got solid quality starting pitching, a really deep bullpen. They've got some big, huge booming bats middle of the lineup, including Wes Clark. That guy's just on a tear right now. And the only criticism I have is that they could be stronger defensively. But they are playing without their starting second baseman, and nothing against Braylon Wimmer, who can play that spot, but it's really tough to learn how to play second base on the fly, and he just has got to get the reps. So you saw it against Clemson. He had 2 plays that he goobered up pretty good, but he also had 1 play he had no business making, and he did it.
Yeah.
So it was like, well, you take the good and you take the bad. And as for Clemson, man, I mean, I don't know if Hollywood would buy that script. It's so ridiculous. It's like, so let me get this straight. The same guy is coming up in a tie game with the same guy on second and got a chance to drive him in. I mean, I was already filling in that completed in diamond on my scoreboard. So I'm like, he's going to do it. This is Andrew Eisher. This is what he does. And sure enough, pow, right into the gap. I'm like, okay, well, there you go. So it's a good way to start. These guys are having fun. That's what everybody wants. And, and when you win like that in that fashion, you think nothing's stopping you. And you just got to hope that the first time they lose, and they will lose, that you just come back the next day. And I didn't say it's imminent, but it'll happen sometime. You just hope the real all say about, 25, 30 more wins before it ever does.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. Yeah, right. I know. Drew Meyer and the 2000 team are probably going, hey, y'all lose a couple games because we were on a hell of a run there. And you're right. And that's one of the things I was talking to somebody about this on the phone earlier. We all know they're going to lose games, or they're going to lose a few games, or quite a few games this year in baseball. Everybody does. I want to see how they bounce back from that. That's the challenge in this sport is how can you overcome those losses? And we all know what's ahead in the SEC schedule. It's remarkably ridiculous, DC. And it does appear that they have some leadership in this program, which is wonderful. They're going to need it. I want to ask you about what we saw Saturday, because not all the strikeouts, not the way not the stats of it. I want to ask you about the umpiring. Here, like, I feel like back in the old days, somebody was going to get run from that sucker. You know, Mark and Monty, they weren't going to do it. It takes a special moment to get either one of those guys thrown out of the ball game. I don't know how much chirping was going on. I couldn't really see from the dugouts. But DC, we've said this 1,000 times if we've said it once. The officials in baseball, football, and basketball have got to be held accountable. That was horrible behind the plate. Scott Klein had a brutal day. He shouldn't see the field for a while. I'm sorry, you have bad days and then you have terrible days. And it was beyond comprehensible how bad he was behind the home plate. What have you learned since then? Have Mark talked? Have they spoken with the league office about this? I know South Carolina won. Great, you move on. You're going to see him again this year. He can't be that bad. It could cost you a game.
Well, full disclosure, Jamie, I didn't watch the Saturday game. I didn't on TV or the live cast. I was over at the softball doubleheader, just keeping up with it on the live tracker. So I was just seeing the stats. But, from everything I read, when I talked to on Sunday at the final game, it was like, oh, it was terrible. I mean, the one thing you could say about his strike zone was it was consistent, but it was consistently bad.
Yeah.
I mean, just seeing some of the replays calling it a strike three when it's in the other batter's box, I'm like, man, I mean, there are some times where you can battle a wide strike zone. You can move up in the box. You can move up toward the plate. You can crowd it so much that you can do a little bit about it. But they couldn't do anything about it, that guy. You're always going to send in calls to the league office. You're always going to try to make the game better from an officiating standpoint. I know that Mark did. I'm not sure if Monty Lee did. But, they were very concerned about that. As for during the game, I'm sure that they weren't real happy about it. But if you go talk to it during the game, all that guy's going to do is hold it against you. I mean, that's the human nature of the game. He's not going to just change things up midstream. So you kind of keep your mouth shut. You don't say anything. You tell your players, just take it and don't worry about it and let me handle it. And then afterwards, it's one of those like, well, if you go and get ejected, you're not doing anybody any good.
Yeah.
So you just kind of have to bite your tongue and hope it gets better. And obviously he didn't call behind the plate on Sunday. He was at third base. But, we'll see if there's going to be any kind of action. I haven't seen any kind of disciplinary action announced. I don't know if they would ever announce those kind of things because the umpires are a lot like basketball referees. Yes, they work within the league, but they're basically freelance regional contractors, and it's all worked by geography. So I'm not sure where this guy's from. I did read an interesting nugget from John Whittle that he actually officiated the first SEC game that Mark Kingston ever coached here and, threw him out of it for his trouble. But, we'll see how it goes. I would hope that we would not see him behind the plate again. And if so, then, it's going to be like, okay, we'll call it by the straight and narrow. Letters to knees, it's a rectangle on top of home plate. None of this stuff in the other batter's box. Because, honestly, during the game, I think it was equally bad on both sides.
It was, yeah.
But, of course, when USC had more of them, so the school record for strikeouts, even though they won, you're like, man, come on. Put it this way. If they'd have lost 3-2 in 11 innings and struck out 21 times and left 15 guys on, that's just damned aggravating. And it sticks with you the whole season. But they won, so I was like, okay, no problem.
That's right. That's right. And it was I would even say it was actually probably a little bit worse for Monty in Clemson. Yeah. There's just I'm so tired of it. I'm so tired of officials in baseball and basketball and referees and officials in football not being held accountable. These coaches are publicly held accountable. These athletics directors, these commissioners, everybody has to answer to somebody, and nobody ever wants to talk about the officiating. It's like 2 years ago when they came up with this SEC officiating Twitter handle that they did nothing with. It's a joke. And I don't. There's so much money in the sports. I know that these schools have all lost money because of the pandemic, but come on, let's not bury our head in the sands, right? Mm-hmm. There is plenty of dough out there to pay officials as full-time employees, and then that's just what they do. That's just what they do. They're just baseball umpires or basketball officials or football officials. They train all year. They go to seminars. They work other spring games and fall games, and they get better. There's no reason not to have that structure in college sports. Maybe one day if we get rid of the NCAA, but that I felt bad for both Clemson and Carolina guys because they didn't know what to do up there. They had no idea what was going to be called a ball and a strike, and that's unacceptable. It's unacceptable.
Now, there's something to be said for that, but it's always going to be human nature, and you can't have that you just can't claim perfection every time just because human nature is involved. That goes to the players, to the games, to the coaches. I mean, there's always going to be that one call that could have gone either way. Now here, it was just a lot of egregiously bad calls. But, you look back on it and say well, I mean, the way it turned out, I can't say any of his ball and strike calls cost Clemson. I mean, the fact was, it was just like South Carolina got one extra hit when they needed to. So you don't like to see it. And I know that, at least one coach on the side, sent that in. But it's like every week calls are sent in from every sport. Yep. And how often do you see something actually done about it? No. I mean, hardly ever. So it's one of and if they do something about it, they're not going to tell you. They don't publicly reprimand anybody. And, it's like with that stupid SEC officiating account. It's just like, oh, well, here's the play we wanted you to talk about. Like, well, I didn't care about that one. How about this one?
Right.
I mean, it's like they said, I think it was during that infamous USC-Florida game 2 years ago, where you can't call holding, apparently, when the guy's dragging your jersey 10 yards behind you. That's not holding.
Right.
But, it's like, oh, well, this play here, this is why this was called. Like, okay.
Yeah. Protecting him at all costs, or maybe the right tackle that stood up in his stance before the ball was snapped. But the holding call, who cares? They didn't even need to worry about it. Throw the flag on the false start, but whatever. That's for another day. All right, we know the men are scuffling. It's probably not going to end well in Lexington this week, but it could end well for the women. Although the regular season didn't when they lost in College Station to A&M, who got the top seed. Carolina's going to tip at 6:00 tomorrow night on the SEC Network against today's Game 4 winner between 10th seeded Missouri and 7th seeded Alabama, DC. What's going on in the women's program? What has Dawn been doing over the last couple of days to prepare this team to make a run? If they can win the SEC women's tournament title, more than likely, I would think, that could slip them into a number 1 seed.
Oh, they'd be right back on that one line if they won the tournament. And at least for Friday's matchup, it's a good matchup. Alabama, Missouri, they played them both this year. They beat them handily. You look at the odds, and Alabama should win that game today. And Alabama's got one really good player, and then it's basically a one-woman gang. So they should be able to win that one and then worry about the rest of the weekend. But the fact is, South Carolina just has not played well coming down the stretch, and it's been because a season-long problem, missing layups, has finally started costing them games. And I know they work on them. I know they do. But, it's hard to work on them accurately when you are double-teamed and triple-teamed. It's hard to work on them accurately when everybody's playing for that. And, of course, they've heard so much about it, not just from the media, but from their own coach, that it probably has crept into their heads a little bit. Now, Don Staley said yesterday, I promise you're going to see a whole different offense when you get to Greenville. Like, okay, well, unless you found Tiffany Mitchell in a closet somewhere ready for one more game of eligibility, I don't know how much I believe it. I mean, at this point, you kind of are what you are. But, she has been trying different things to try to take so much of the impetus off layups. They've played Aaliyah Boston a little higher up top, right around the high post. That way it opens up that lane. You allow your guards to cut to the basket, but you still got to go make those shots. And, South Carolina, a big part of their game is transition. Well, you got to finish those shots, and that's just the reality of the situation. I can honestly tell you that Texas A&M is a real good team. They've been flying under the radar all year. Probably didn't get the respect they do. They've beaten 9 top 25 teams. They're really, really good. And the way that game unfolded, I thought, well, it looks like a typical USC game. They're going to get to the fourth and, find some way to win it. But that third quarter, you just can't go scoreless for 7 minutes. Mm-hmm. And a lot of those weren't missed layups. That was just good defense by A&M, which is always going to happen against the Gary Blair team. So I can look at it and say South Carolina's lost 4 times this year. And 3 of them, they beat themselves because of missed layups. So you still got that one. But you got a chance to make up for it. So it's not good. I mean, we haven't seen this program lose a championship when it's been in position to win one. That just hasn't been something done over the past 5-6 years. But they did it last Sunday. So you got to put it behind you. and you got a fresh new chance this week and say, okay, well, look at this as 3 chances to get it right. Because you don't have to use all 3 and you're still going to be okay. But if you don't use all 3 of those, fine, you still got more, but once more and there's no more tomorrow.
Right.
You know, you have to look at it this way and say, I don't know how much better you're going to get at your weaknesses, but you're going to have to try to find an answer and say, you've got to find a way to get this done. Every individual on this team, and there's got to be one individual on this team who has to start taking charge on the court and saying, listen to me, get behind me, do what I say, and we're going to win. I don't know who that's going to be, but they need to find somebody. Nothing against the girls on this team because they all love each other, but sometimes there's a thing is too much chemistry because you have to kick somebody in the butt every once in a while, and right now they don't have that.
4-3 in their last 7 games. Good news, though, it could be a revenge-type tournament for Gamecock women's basketball. If they can get through either Missouri or Alabama tomorrow, that would set them up more than likely with Tennessee on Saturday and A&M on Sunday, both of whom they lost to in the regular season. Of course, Tennessee finished right behind them, A&M finished above them, and Carolina could knock them both out and take that number 1 seed into the NCAA women's tournament. We'll just have to see how it all unfolds. All right, DC, on that note, we're going to let you run, my man. What are we looking forward to over the next few days in the Post and Courier?
Well, talking about that basketball tournament this weekend and then having the coverage from the basketball tournament this weekend. Depending on those results, there might be a fun little story in the paper on Sunday, but we just got to see how the Gamecocks do before I can say it. But it'll be in there soon enough. I can tell you that. And it's football related, and I think you'll like it.
Wonderful stuff. Always wonderful stuff. Hey, brother, thank you so much. Have a wonderful weekend. Hopefully next time we talk, the women are a top seed. South Carolina's men have caught fire, and the baseball team's still undefeated.
Well, I think you got a good chance at 2 of those.
Okay.
Thanks for having me.
See you, man. There you go. David Cloninger with the Post and Courier on Twitter at DCPNC. By the way, free plug for our friends at the Post and Courier, and one of them in particular, Gene Sapikoff. His column is out today, the one that we've been discussing this week. He said he stole it from us, but he has a mind of his own. I think maybe we just had the same thoughts, and he can write about it. It is a very good read about FCS football and the lack of coverage it is receiving here in the spring. He did speak with Brent Thompson. He also spoke with Jeff Barber over at Charleston Southern. I think that both of their comments were very well thought out and calm. Mine would have been different, but it is a good column, and Gene's right. He's right. He's spot on. He said exactly. Now maybe he did take that from me. He said exactly what I said last week. Cut on the TV on a Tuesday night, and I was watching ESPN college football's 150 from 2019.
Yep.
Who gives a crap? Show me a game. And he pointed out a couple big games in FCS this week, and nobody's talking about them.
Not at all.
Because nobody knows.
Nope. It's buried.
All right. We do have Scott Glaze coming up here in just a little bit. Couple of things to kind of pass along before we get there, though. I did mention at the top of that segment with David Cloninger, Ole Miss has released a video. They are moving forward with new guidelines and protocols for increased attendance starting this weekend for college baseball games down in Oxford. And of course, this is all gearing up and trying to prepare. They're trying to prepare themselves for the fall where they're hoping to have a full house. Dondi Plowman up in Knoxville has said as much about Tennessee, not going as far as to say that's exactly what's going to happen, but she's saying, look, this is what we're gearing towards, trying to have a full house this fall at Neyland Stadium. And we've kind of fussed and discussed this the last couple of days. Coach Tanner yesterday was a little bit more reserved in his comments and saying, look, we are where we are right now. But if we feel like we need to kind of flip things over, we will certainly be much more aggressive in trying to fill up Williams-Brice Stadium this fall, but they're not making any major changes at this point in time. But he is optimistic about the future, as many of these folks are. And so it looks like things are kind of starting to turn in that direction, opening things back up. I texted somebody last night who works in an athletics department who is familiar with many of these decisions, and his response back to me, I made sure to type it into my phone, was, look, as long as state governments are allowing us to, obviously they can't do anything until the government allows them to, as long as state governments are allowing these schools to be able to increase attendance, this was the statement I got, as numbers drop, we believe that people should be able to assess their choices and listen to the experts. Then make your own choice, not have somebody make that for you. That was a statement that we had last night, which I think is great. I think that's what it's all about at the end of the day. If you're asking me what my opinion is, that is exactly my opinion.
Right.
let me make my own decision. If I don't want to go, I don't have to go. I don't have to buy a ticket. I don't have to buy a season ticket. I don't have to do anything. So that's it looks like, when I got that, I was like, that makes sense. That seems like what a lot of people are thinking.
I think that's what every single athletic department is thinking.
I think that's all you can hope for.
Right. The only thing you can do now is plan. You're in a better spot planning than you were a year ago because there's a lot more information, and there will be more information come August. But the only thing you can do right now is plan, because if the state government, let's say South Carolina says fill it up, and you're not ready to fill it up, and you don't have the manpower and the ability to space it how you need, and then you're foolish. So you've got to be ready for that, and you got to be ready to also scale it up as well.
That's exactly right. So things are looking good. Mississippi sure is headed in that direction quickly over there. Although I will say, it's not like they're just going to fill up the ballpark. They're going by a step-by-step process. It's going to be gradual. They'll assess after each weekend. And
it's not just like doors are open.
No. They're requiring you to wear masks and things of that nature. Yeah, none of that is changing, but they're going to let more people in. Also, Phil Steele has released his annual 6 months in advance projected AP top 10 poll in college football. So this is his projected top 10 there. And I'm just going to read the list 1 through 10 here. Alabama, Clemson, Georgia. By the way, they opened the season against each other, 2 and 3.
Yes, they do.
Oklahoma at 4, Ohio State at 5, A&M at 6, Notre Dame at 7, North Carolina at 8. How about this at 9? Iowa State.
Yep.
And Cincinnati at 10. And I'm with all of you. I agree with everybody that this may be running through your head, and you say, who cares? What? It's March. None of that matters right now. You're right. But let me run a stat out here. Predicting the top 10 teams in the AP poll 6 months in advance. Phil Steele has a 95.8% record. He's correct 96% of the time.
I wonder, my guess is that just means like any order, here are my top 10 if the top 10 is these 10 teams. But either way, I mean, I have two thoughts. A, that's absurdly accurate stuff, and that's why Phil Steele is as good as he is.
Right.
B, that also speaks to an issue in college football. Because how many times over these last couple of years has the top 4 been Alabama,
you're right,
Clemson, Oklahoma, Georgia? I mean, I could throw those guys in the top 10 too.
You're right.
So it speaks to both.
I totally agree with you. I think that what would be the question marks? Iowa State, North Carolina, Cincinnati, probably, right? The 8, 9, 10s, right?
Yeah.
Aren't those always? I mean, we all know those top 5, top 6 even are going to be in there.
Yeah, they should be.
Yeah. But 12 years in a row he's done this. 115 of the 120 teams that he has put in there have been in there.
That's crazy.
So he's missed 5 teams in 12 years.
Yeah, okay. So that clears it up. So it's here are my 10. They can fall anyway in the 10.
Yeah.
And he's only missed 5 of 120. That's ridiculous.
It tells me he's not going out on many limbs. It's like, I think these are just the 10 best teams. I'm going to put them in there.
But then they are.
Yeah. Right.
Well, they stay there.
That's right. And he's not like one of these AP voters who's like, yeah, you know what? I really feel like Kentucky's a top 10 team.
Ohio State didn't play enough. They're 11.
Right. Yeah. No, he's using simple logic.
Yes.
Which I appreciate that. All right, got to hit a break. When we return, Scott Glaze is going to check in quick on golf, and then we will head off to the house for the rest of this beautiful Thursday afternoon. Hang tight. JB and Goldwater Show. We'll be right back.
Peace and love at Stokes Feed Dub.
This is Mike Mazzell for Stokes Volkswagen on Ashley Phosphate Road. Whatever you got planned this week, cancel it. 72 new Volkswagens will be sold in the next 72 hours at whatever price it takes. I repeat, 72 new Volkswagens will be sold in the next 72 hours. to the first 72 car buyers interested in saving up to $6,000 on a new Volkswagen for 3 days only. Every new Volkswagen and pre-owned vehicle at our bottom line price. Direct to the public, regardless of profit. Qualified purchases with interest-free financing for 60 months, and all trade-ins will be accepted. Interested parties should arrive early for best selection. You will not find a lower price anywhere in the country. 72-hour Volkswagen clearance, savings up to $6,000, 3 days only at Stokes Volkswagen on Ashley Phosphate Road or StokesVW.com.
Peace and love at Stokes VW.
$16.66 per month per $1,000 borrowed for 60 months at 0% APR with 0 down. Plus tax tag includes $499.50 administration fee subject to VCI credit approval. Expires month end.
What's up, everyone? JB here. Want to tell you about my friends at McFadden Pest Control, as we do every day on our program. I love these guys. They've been in business over 40 years, and they treat our family like they've only been around for 4 days. Always doing their best work, trying to earn our business, although they know that they'll always have it. Heath and the guys take care of our quarterly, our mosquitoes, termite bonds, anything we can get them to do, they do it. They're the best. They're friends. Heath even often texts me and just asks to see how my family's doing. It's amazing. I can't say enough about McFadden Pest Control. Switch to them. You'll never have anyone else protect your home. McFaddenPestControl.com, McFaddenPestControl.com here in the Low Country.
Guys, spring is finally in the air. You know what that means? Basketball in its home stretch. March Madness promotion at Dog and Duck's 3 locations in Mount Pleasant, Bell Hall, Park West, and Clemens Ferry Road. From now until the end of the tournament, $5 Sweetwater pints. That's right. Every Sweetwater, just $5 at Dog and Duck, Park West, Bell Hall, and their Clemens Ferry location. Plus, baseball spring training, college baseball, spring football, it's all available at Dog and Duck's 3 locations in Mount Pleasant.
What's up, everybody? This is South Carolina singer-songwriter Patrick Davis, and I might live in Nashville, Tennessee now, but guess what? I can always keep up with the news back in South Carolina because I've got the JB and Goldwater Show. Thank you, JB and Darren, for being live, loud, and online.
Your love lifting me higher than I've ever
145, final segment on this Thursday afternoon. It is National Sons Day.
Hey,
you're a son, I'm a son, Scott Glaze is a son. So to all of you and all of the men out there, happy National Sons Day.
Yeah, we deserve something. That's good.
That's right.
Yes.
It's also National Pound Cake Day. So pound some pound cake on National Sons Day.
Sure, I can do whatever I want. It's my day.
That's right. What's up, Scotty?
What's going on, guys? Man, those are two. You ever had peanut butter on pound cake?
No,
I have not.
That's a move right there. You gotta put peanut butter on pound cake. It is phenomenal. I'm biased. We've got some great family pound cake recipes, but man, that's a good I guess underground move. So try it next time.
That's
interesting.
That is very interesting. I've never thought of that. Okay, all right. Have you ever put peanut butter on your hot dog?
Oh,
I have not.
No,
don't.
Our friend Rafael Esparza once did that. You remember when he told us that story?
I do.
And we were pretty grossed out by it as well. I would not do that to the hot dogs at Stone Ferry. I know that they're way too good to have peanut butter on them. They're big and juicy and tasty.
Mustard.
And they fill you up when you make the turn at Stone Ferry. StoneFerryGolf.com, by the way. Beautiful weekend to play golf. This is the time to do it. StoneFerryGolf.com to book your tee times. Hey, Scott, let's get right into it. The Arnold Palmer Invitational is underway in Orlando, Florida. And how about that leaderboard? At the top, it's Rory, 6 under today in his first round. Bryson DeChambeau, or yesterday, I guess. Bryson DeChambeau. Today.
Yeah.
How's he done? He must have. Oh, yeah, he went off way early. That's right. Bryson DeChambeau is in at 5 under. I forgot what day. I was thinking today was Friday.
Yeah.
When I looked at that, I was like, wait a second. Bryson DeChambeau is at 5 under. Those are your leaders right now in the Arnold Palmer Invitational. That's a special board right there to kick off our weekend.
Yeah, that's a great board to kick off the weekend. This is such a special tournament. This is the tournament at Arnold Palmer's home course and what Mr. Palmer meant to the game of golf and the way he popularized it back in the 50s and 60s in Arnie's Army. And so this tournament is always special to the players, special to the fans. It's at the same golf course every year. So We're very familiar with it. It's got one of those. It's an upper tier tournament. It's got one of those feels to it. We are entering what I'd like to call Rory season because for back-to-back weeks now, we're going to be at 2 golf courses that Rory really plays well at, and he's in search of a win. Did not win last calendar year. We're all looking for Rory to get back into the winner's circle, and starting out with a 66 today is a great way to do it. And then we go next week to the Players Championship where Rory won in 2019. We did not have that event in 2020. So he'll be the defending champion there. At Bay Hill, though, where we're at this week, since 2015, Rory is first in scoring average, first in strokes gained, first in strokes gained tee to green, first in drives over 300 yards, and first in one putt percentage. So he plays pretty well around here, and not surprisingly off to a hot start. But trouble with Rory lately is they just can't finish it. Can't do it on Sunday. We saw last week at the concession, which I love that I guess its nickname, the concession's nickname was the Concussion. I thought that was great, but Rory kind of faltered there on Sunday, shooting around even par, maybe 1-2 over. So let's see if he can keep it going for all four rounds this weekend. And a little nod to our guy Tiger. He has won this tournament a record 8 times in his career. He won it in 2000, 2001, 2002, 2003, 2008, 2009, 2012, and 2013. And let us not forget, he's won competitively at Bay Hill 9 times because he won the U.S. Junior Amateur at this course in 1991. So a lot of great memories, watching Tiger dominate Bay Hill throughout the years. And so hopefully we'll have a good show from some of these big names this weekend.
One of the things that I've noticed in round 1 today is that the 1st and the 18th are playing as the toughest holes on the course. Scott, what does that mean to you?
That's
Nope.
He didn't care to answer that question.
What it means to him is he doesn't want to go play that course.
he didn't have an answer for that one. So we'll have to just guess as to what Scott might say. No, we'll get him back here in just a moment. Yeah, right now number 1 is 4.3 is the average score. Of course, it's a par 4, so it's playing about 0.3 over the average. And then on the 18th, 4.49. That's playing almost a half a shot ahead of the average, which is wild.
I can tell you, I mean, he rattled off the stats about how well Rory has typically played on this golf course. I can tell you, he was a crazy heavy favorite. He was 3-1. Nobody else was even in the ballpark in terms of betting.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, we got Scott back. Do you want to answer that question, Scott, or should
No, he does not want to answer that question. All right, we'll text Scott. We'll tell him we'll hook up with him next week.
Yeah, we'll put that one on ice for next week. Unfortunately, Scott has we're having some technical difficulties there, as we do from time to time. But yes, the Arnie is playing right now. We all know that last week the tour played tribute to Tiger Woods because wearing red and black on Sunday, of course, Rory McIlroy was kind of leading that charge out there, and right now he's leading the tournament at 6 under. A 66 is what he dropped in today, and DeChambeau is 67 right behind him at 5 under as well. A couple other quick scores of note. I want to make sure we pass this along. Jordan Spieth is at 2 under, and he is tied for 9th. So it'd be nice to see Jordan Spieth get off to a nice start here.
He's been playing well. Spieth has been playing well now the last couple of weeks. He wasn't really in the hunt at the concession last week, but we've seen him back-to-back weeks in California. We saw him at Torrey and then down in LA at Riviera, where he was hunting on the leaderboard until the last couple of days. There is a sense that Spieth is getting closer to form. It's been a while that he has not been on form, so there's a sense that he's closer.
Yeah. But I haven't asked you this. What do you think about this investigation all of a sudden into the black box in the Tiger Woods car?
So I think first and foremost, the officers on the scene are the ones who spoke up, at least publicly, misspoke and were a little bit early in saying what they said, because it's a high-speed crash. There's going to be an investigation. And then the word that comes out is, I saw this today, Tiger was unconscious at first when they found him, and then was alert and answering. And he did not remember driving the car. When they got to Tiger, he had no idea how he even got there. He doesn't remember driving the car. Now, they never took blood. So there was never reason to. So they were never able to get a warrant. He was not intoxicated visibly. There was nothing in the car that mentions any type of illicit drugs or alcohol.
Yeah.
But I think it makes sense if you're going to complete an investigation into a crash and you have the ability to go into a black box, figure out what happened. I think it makes sense. I think it would happen if any one of us was in a similar spot.
Yeah.
I just think they jumped the gun a little bit early on and said, there will be no investigation. But the only thing that would happen is a reckless driving. It's not anything that Tiger is, behind bars.
No. He's not going to get a felony.
No, it'd be like a reckless driving if it gets to that point.
Yeah. And more than likely, this is just a procedure and it should be squashed.
Yeah.
But yeah, I know when they said he didn't, I saw some comments online. Well, he didn't remember. Well, dude, if you were in a wreck like that, I would venture a guess you might wake up from it and have no idea what happened yourself.
Absolutely.
That's not.
Ask a guy who's playing football and gets clocked and gets a concussion. Like,
yeah,
I woke up where?
I have no idea.
What am I doing in this stadium?
Exactly.
Yeah.
We will speak with Grace Rayner tomorrow, much more about Tony Elliott and get an update on Clemson's spring practice schedule, what's going on within the Tigers program. But it was fascinating to hear Tony Elliott's comments yesterday about his future and the things that he would look for in a home. He said the timing wasn't right at Tennessee or to take the Tennessee position. It appears crystal clear that they pursued him. I don't know if they actually offered him the position or not, if it even got that far. We got to remember something in all of these searches, all of them. You see these erroneous reports every single time that so-and-so was offered the job, but he declined, or someone's camp will put that out. We declined the position when an offer was actually never on the table. Like, there were no offers at South Carolina outside of the offer made to Shane Beamer. So if somebody says Tony Elliott turned down Tennessee, it doesn't actually mean that Tony Elliott was offered the job at Tennessee. So it all depends on how the wording is and the way that you look at it and things like that. That doesn't mean that they didn't want to make him an offer.
Right.
Or anything like that. It just might mean it never got to that point. He might have said thanks, but no thanks.
Yeah, it could have been the clear top choice, but they realized he wasn't going to say yes.
Yeah.
Why extend an offer and have, egg on your face?
Exactly. We don't ever know the answers to these questions, really, and it doesn't really matter at the end of the day unless there's really, really something to dive into there. But it is interesting that he is basically publicly accepted that he is going to probably be a head coach one day, and this is what type of role he would like to be in. And I'll tell you what else I took from those comments. He's going to take a job, Darren, that's in position to win,
built for success.
Yeah.
Yes.
He's not. This isn't going to be. He's not going to go plug a hole in an SEC gig for a program that's struggling. Or something
South Carolina, that's probably why South Carolina wasn't in his mind considered.
Yeah, and you know what? From what I understand, South Carolina wasn't going to go hire a Clemson assistant coach. It wasn't going to happen.
That's right.
From their side, and I think from his side too. Although I know he respects the Gamecock program,
right?
I don't think he wanted anything to do with a rebuild. Tennessee is certainly in rebuild mode, and he didn't even know to what extent. You know what I mean? So. Let's say at the end of the season, let's say there's a Kentucky or something like that. Good program, going to pay you some money, no doubt. Probably a 4 or 5 year build, 3, 4, 5 year build. I didn't get out of his comments that he was interested in that. I got out of his comments that it'd be more like if things just don't work out at a place like, I don't know, LSU. Like that the talent is there, the facilities are there, the support is there, but the top guy's just not really working. I'll step right in and win for him.
Mm-hmm.
It's something. I'm not saying LSU specifically, but that type of role, that's not what he was going to get in Knoxville. Could have been what he got in Auburn if they were really interested in him, but they went with Brian Harsin, a great hire, and So we'll see. We're going to talk to Grace more about that tomorrow.
Yeah, and a lot of it too is with Elliott, his family concern. You know, he first and foremost he wants to make sure that his family is happy and comfortable. That's first and foremost. So, you know, are you going to just go take this pressure cooker job where you can't win and, you know, things are good right now in Clemson? Why rock the family boat for something that, you know, you're not so certain can be as good?
Well, he mentioned the Dabo Sweeney model, and he said, I want to emulate that. Where can I go and plant some roots?
It makes sense.
We'll see, but we'll talk to Grace about it certainly tomorrow. All right, thanks to Cory McCartney, David Cloninger, and Scott Glaze, and all of you certainly for watching and listening, as you always do. We appreciate that. Thanks to Darren.
Thank you.
Gorgeous outside. So hopefully y'all can get out there and enjoy that. Maybe a cheesesteak, maybe a drink from Dog and Duck.
Open patios. Yeah.
If you're in the West Ashley, James Island area, maybe over at Paddock and Whiskey on Maybank Highway. How about a good bourbon today outside? Enjoy yourselves. For Darren, I'm Jamie. We're back tomorrow at noon right here on the JB and Goldwater Show, driven by Stokes Volkswagen.